This is homework section 3, arithmetic with real numbers, addition and subtraction, and we're going to look at questions 1 through 10. Question 1 asks us to evaluate this expression here. Now, I'm going to work inside parentheses first. So I've got this set of grouping symbols. Let's work inside here first. So I'm just going to rewrite. I'm going to work in here first. So let's just rewrite what we have. Negative 10 plus 2. Now, negative 2 plus 4. Negative 2 plus 4, I'm down 2. I get 4 more, so I'm now up 2. So this is going to be a 2. And then a plus a negative 6. Now I'm going to use the order of operations here to combine these numbers. So let's see, we've got an addition. Now this is not a subtraction. Subtraction needs two numbers. This is just indicating a negative 10. So it's negative 10, not minus 10, negative 10. So this is, what have we got? We've got an addition, a multiplication, and an addition of a negative number, right? This is negative 6, not minus 6. So I've got over here negative 10, not minus 10, negative 6, not minus 6. So I've got an addition, multiplication, addition. Let's do the multiplication first. So let's do this one right here. Now this is going to be positive 2 times positive 2. That's a 4. So I'm going to get negative 10 plus 4, and then I still have that negative 6. Now, just going left to right, all right, just go left to right. I'm going to take care of these two. So I'll have negative 10 plus 4. Now, negative 10 plus 4 is negative 6. Think of it, you're down 10, you get 4. Now you're only down 6, plus a negative 6. Now I'm adding two numbers with the same sign. So I'm just going to get 6 and 6 is 12 and use the common sign, which is negative. So I'm going to write this as negative 12 and claim that that is another way of writing this expression right here. So this expression up here at the top, that's another way of writing negative 12. Question 2 asks us to add 7 to negative 17, right? So we've got an addition of two numbers with opposite signs. Now, if you have an idea of how to do this, you're going to take 7, negative 17, you're going to get negative 10. But I'm also going to do this in detail, just in case you want to see why we get that negative 10. Now, the method of adding numbers is to find their absolute value. Now, the absolute value of a number is its distance from 0 on the number line. So, let's take a look at 7. What's the absolute value of 7? So, the absolute value of 7, we're going to close the 7 in these vertical bars. How far is 7 from 0 on the number line? Happens to be 7 units to the right. Direction doesn't matter. Just how far from 0 is it? 7 units. What about that negative 17? The absolute value of negative 17, well, negative 17 is 17 units to the left of 0, but direction doesn't matter. It's 17 units to the left of 0. Now, to add two numbers, right, I'm adding two numbers with opposite signs. One is positive, one is negative. So what I do is I find their absolute values, and then I'll subtract the larger absolute value, 17, minus the smaller absolute value, which is 7. So larger absolute value minus smaller absolute value. Now that gives me a 10. And then what I do is I affix the sign of the larger absolute value. A lot of words there. But look at the larger absolute value. 17 is the larger one. What sign is that one? It's negative. So affix the negative sign right here. That's where the negative 10 comes from. Question 3, we just want to take negative 2 and add 1. Now, if you know this, I'm down 2, I'm up 1, so I'm down 1. So I'm going to say this is negative 1, but I'm going to do this by absolute value, just in case you want to see where that negative's coming from. So I've got an addition. Now, here's how we add numbers. You take their absolute values. So the absolute value of negative 2 is 2. How far is negative 2 from 0 on the number line? It's 2 units away. Happens to be the left, but direction doesn't matter. We're 2 units from 0. Now, what about 1? 1 is 1 unit away. Now, to add two numbers, here's the rule. To add two numbers with opposite signs, right? One's negative, one's positive. I make a subtraction. I take the larger absolute value minus the smaller absolute value, getting a 1, but then I use the sign of the larger absolute value. So look at the absolute values. I got a 2 and a 1. What's the larger absolute value? It's 2. What's the sign of that 2? It's negative. So I'm going to affix a negative to that. So I'm going to put a negative there, and that's where the negative 1 comes from. Question 4, negative 4 plus negative 4. So what I'm going to do is just get negative 8 out of this, but here's where that negative 8 is coming from. Here's the rule. I'm going to add absolute values. So the absolute value of negative 4 is 4. Negative 4 is 4 units from 0 on the number line. Now, it doesn't matter if I do the other one. Still 4. Now, I'm going to add two numbers. They have the same sign. So the rule for adding numbers with the same sign is to add their absolute values. So 4 plus 4, that'll give me 8. But then put on the sign of the common, fix the common sign. So both are negative, so I'm going to put a negative on here. So that's going to be where that negative 8 comes from. Now you might think that this way too, is that over here on the left you're down 4, and then you're down 4 more, so now you're down 8. Question 5, we've got to add negative 6 and negative 20. Now, I've got two numbers with the same sign. They're both negative. I'm going to add them. So I'm going to take their absolute values. Now this is 6. I'll just do it right here. The absolute value of negative 6 is 6. Negative 6 is 6 units away from 0 on the number line. The absolute value of negative 20 is 20. So add those together, 6 plus 20, that'll give us 26. Now affix the common sign. The common sign here, they're both negative. So the rule for adding two numbers with the same sign is to add their absolute values and then put on the common sign. So I'm going to get negative 26. Now here in 6, we're going to add three numbers. I've got two additions here. I've got this one and then this one, but I'm going to add three numbers, this, and this. So I'm just going to go left to right. So as I go left to right, now what I'm doing is I'm adding two numbers with opposite signs. So I find their absolute values. Now I'll do this one in detail here. The absolute value of 4 is 4. The absolute net value of negative 5 is 5. So the rule for adding two numbers with opposite signs, right, one's positive, one's negative, is to subtract the larger minus the smaller and use the sign of the larger absolute value. That's a lot of words. All right, use the sign of the larger absolute value. Well, the larger absolute value is this one, right? 5 is larger than 4. Now, what sign does that come from? Comes from a negative. So affix to that result there the common sign. So I'm going to put in a negative 1. So right back over here, 4 minus 5 is negative 1. So this will be negative 1 plus negative 6. Now, you don't really have to go through all of this business over here. If it works for you, that's fine. If you can just see it, you're up 4, and then you lose 5, you're down 1. Now what are we doing? Now I'm adding two numbers with the same sign. I'm adding two negative numbers. So their absolute value, just find their absolute values. You can do that in your head. Absolute value of negative 1 is 1. Add, right, the same sign, so you add their absolute values, and then put on the common sign. So I'm going to write this as negative 7. Question 7 looks like a lot going on here. Now I've got some grouping. I got a grouping symbol, right? I've got this one right here. Got that grouping symbol. So let's work inside here first. So the best approach, I think, is just to rewrite the entire expression. So I'll get 19 plus. Now, what do we get in here? What is this? We've got adding two numbers with opposite signs. So I'm just essentially going to do a subtraction and put on the sign of the larger absolute value. So I've got 9. Here's what I'm thinking. 9 minus 3 is 6. And the larger absolute value is the 9. That's positive. So I have 9 minus 3 is 6. I'm going to put on the plus sign from here. So I'll get a 6 here. and then I still got that plus negative 14. Now let's just go left to right. I've got an addition and another addition. So just go left to right. So let's do these two first. So 19 plus 6, that's a 25, plus negative 14. Now I'm adding two numbers with opposite signs, so just do a subtraction. I'm thinking 25 minus 14. That should be 11. And what sign is it? It comes from the larger absolute value. Now the absolute value of 25 is 25. The absolute value of negative 14 is 14. This is the larger absolute value, and it's a positive number. So I'm going to use a positive number out here. So I'm going to claim that this is 11. We've got a couple of grouping symbols here in question 8. We've got this pair and this pair. Now I am not seeing this as a grouping symbol. That's just to, well, I guess in a way it groups the negative 3 and the negative 2. But I'm seeing this one as grouping these two numbers. Now let's work inside each one of these separately. So first up, 10 plus negative 3. All right, 10. Now I'm adding two numbers with opposite signs. So I'm just going to do a subtraction. Larger absolute value is 10. Smaller absolute value is 3. So just 10 minus 3 is 7. Larger absolute value is 10. So this number here is going to be 7. I've got 10 things. I'm going to lose 3, so I've now got 7. Now I've got a plus, right? Plus. So I'll write that plus sign right here. So plus. Now over here, what is this? I've got 12 minus 2, right? I'm adding two numbers with opposite signs, so just run a subtraction. 12 minus 2 is 10. This is positive, so this is the bigger absolute value. So this is going to be a 10. Now I'm adding two numbers with the same sign, so I'm going to add the absolute values, 7 and 10 and 17, and they're both positive. Positive 7, positive 10, so this is going to be a positive 17. And this brings us to the end of our questions 1 through 8.